Establish Nancy, her disappearance, and plant 2 viewer promises that lock viewers in immediately. Wednesday morning in Millhaven, Ohio looked completely normal. A gas station opened at 6. A school bus turned onto Dellwood Road at 7:15. Neighbors walked dogs. Coffee brewed. Nothing felt wrong. Nancy Guthrie left her house at 8:40 a.m. She had her keys, her phone, a green canvas tote bag she carried everywhere. Her sister Mara had texted her that morning. Nancy replied with a single word. Later, that was the last message anyone received from her. By 3 p.m., she still hadn't arrived where she was going. By 6 p.m., her sister was calling hospitals. By 9 p.m., Millhaven police had opened a missing persons file. Here is the first thing that should disturb you. Nobody in her life reported anything unusual in the days before she vanished. No fights, no threats, no strange calls. Nancy Guthrie did not disappear from a life that was falling apart. She disappeared from a life that looked completely fine. Stay with us, because before this video ends, we're going to show you exactly what the evidence found in the 72 hours after Nancy vanished actually reveals. That is Promise 1. And we're going to answer the question that investigators themselves struggled to say out loud. That is Promise 2. If you have never heard this case before, subscribe right now, because this one will stay with you. Nancy was 34 years old. She worked locally. She had no history of disappearing. She was not a woman anyone expected to become a case file. But she did, and the hours after she vanished exposed something deeply wrong underneath the surface of this ordinary Wednesday. What did investigators find first? But before investigators could answer the obvious questions, they had to figure out what the evidence was actually telling them. The evidence deliver Promise 1, lay out the physical evidence timeline, and reveal the first disturbing anomaly. The first responding officers treated it as a standard missing persons case. That changed within 48 hours. Nancy's green canvas tote bag turned up first. It was found on the shoulder of Dellwood Road, roughly 600 meters from her house. Everything was still inside. Her wallet, her phone, her keys. Read that again slowly. Her keys were in the bag. That single detail reoriented the entire investigation. You do not leave your keys behind voluntarily. You do not set your phone down on the side of a road and walk away. This was not Nancy choosing to disappear. Something happened to her on Dellwood Road, and it happened fast. Detective Harlow took over the case on day 2. His first move was pulling surveillance footage from every camera within a 2-mile radius. What he found gave investigators their first real timeline, but also their first real problem. Footage from a camera outside a Dellwood Road property captured Nancy walking alone at 8:52 a.m. She was moving at a normal pace. Nothing indicated distress. 12 minutes later, a second camera further up the road showed nothing. Nancy had simply stopped appearing in any footage anywhere. That 12-minute window became the center of everything. Dr. Elaine Ross, the forensic analyst brought in on day 3, later stated the positioning of the bag, the intact contents, and the absence of any struggle indicators made this one of the more confusing initial scenes I have worked. Confusing. That word matters, because the scene gave investigators evidence, but the evidence raised more questions than it answered. There was no blood. No sign of a vehicle stopping, no witnesses on that stretch of road at that time, just a bag. And a 12-minute gap that nobody could explain. Nancy had vanished cleanly, almost surgically. And the more investigators pulled at the evidence, the more one name kept surfacing. Because once you line up everything that was found, a pattern emerges that nobody in Millhaven was ready to face. Deliver Promise 2 build the investigative pattern through a numbered list anchor and force the central disturbing question into focus. Here is what investigators had established by the end of day 4. 5 facts, each one uncomfortable on its own. Together, they form something genuinely disturbing. 1. Nancy disappeared inside a 12-minute window on a road she walked regularly. No witnesses, no cameras, no physical disturbance. 2. Her bag was placed, not thrown, not dropped, placed on the road shoulder, upright, organized. Someone wanted it found quickly. 3. The last person to see Nancy publicly was Father Connell, a local figure who encountered her briefly at the Anchor Bar the evening before she vanished. He described her as quiet but not upset. 4. Her ex-partner Todd Vane had contacted her 3 times in the week before her disappearance. She had not responded to any of his messages. 5. Todd Vane could not provide investigators with a verified alibi for the 8:40 to 10 a.m. window on the morning Nancy disappeared. Now hold all 5 of those facts in your mind at once. Someone knew her route. Someone moved quickly and quietly enough to leave no trace. Someone staged the bag with enough calculation to slow the investigation by making it look like she walked away willingly. And someone with a clear personal interest in Nancy had no alibi for the exact window she vanished. This is the question investigators had to answer. Was this a calculated disappearance planned by someone close to Nancy? Or was there something else operating underneath this case that nobody had identified yet? Detective Harlow later said the staging of the bag was the detail that changed his thinking entirely. Staged scenes carry intent. Intent requires planning. Planning requires knowledge of Nancy's routine that narrows the suspect pool fast. Before we go further, based on only what you know right now, who do you think is responsible? Drop your answer in the comments. We want to see how many of you land on the right name before the end. And when investigators finally focused that suspicion, what they uncovered was worse than anyone in Millhaven expected. And when that pattern pointed directly at one person, everything this case had been building toward finally exploded into the open. Suspected truth word count. Screen time, 156 min, central action. Name and build the case against Todd Vane, deliver the most unsettling detail, and force a moral reckoning. Todd Vane had known Nancy Guthrie for 6 years. They had been in a relationship for 4 of those years. The breakup, according to Mara Guthrie, had not been clean. Todd had struggled to accept it was over. The 3 unanswered messages in the week before Nancy vanished were not the first time he had reached out, despite her silence. When detectives brought him in for formal questioning, his account of that morning was vague. He said he was home. He said he was alone. He could not produce a single piece of evidence, digital, physical, or human, to confirm that account. Investigators then executed a search of the Vane property. What they found there did not answer every question, but it answered enough. Personal items belonging to Nancy were recovered inside the property. Items she had not left there voluntarily because their relationship had ended over a year before her disappearance. A personal journal, a photograph removed from her home, a piece of jewelry her sister confirmed Nancy wore regularly. Detective Harlow stated in the investigative report, the recovery of these items established a level of access and obsession that fundamentally changed the direction of our investigation. Obsession. That word landed hard in Millhaven. If this case is getting under your skin, subscribe and hit the bell. We cover cases exactly like this every week. Todd Vane was formally named a person of interest. He retained legal representation and stopped cooperating with the investigation. And here is the detail that nobody in that town could shake. Nancy had told her sister 3 weeks before she vanished, I think someone has been in my house. She had reported nothing officially. She had told no one else. Nancy told her sister someone had been in her house, but never filed a report. Why do you think she stayed silent? Tell us in the comments. But even with the suspect named and evidence cataloged, the most disturbing question in this case still has no answer. Unresolved close withhold, final resolution, leave the viewer unsettled, emotionally anchored, and driven to engage. As of today, Nancy Guthrie has not been found. Todd Vane has not been charged. The personal items recovered from his property created suspicion, but not a prosecutable case. His lawyer called the items remnants of a shared relationship. The investigation remains officially open. Mara Guthrie still answers her phone on the first ring. Think about that. Every single call. First ring, because she is still waiting for the one call that tells her where her sister is. The 12-minute window on Dellwood Road has never been explained. No witness has come forward. No new physical evidence has surfaced. A woman walked into a gap in the morning, and the gap never gave her back. Here is what we know for certain. Someone knew Nancy's route. Someone moved without leaving a trace. Someone staged a scene designed to buy time. And someone who had documented access to her private life has never been held accountable for anything. Cases like this do not stay cold forever. They break on a witness who finally decides to speak, on evidence that was always there but never connected, on one person who knows something and has been carrying it alone for too long. Do you think Todd Vane knows what happened to Nancy? Or is there someone else in this case we haven't seen yet? Tell us below. If you know anything about this case, or if this story reached someone who does, share this video. One view could be the reason this case finally moves. Subscribe. We are not done with this case, and neither should you be.